anything you've been paying attention to?
Largely crypto at this point. Interestingly, even with today's pullback in the stock market, crypto is still looking pretty bullish. And that's the type of divergence I'm always excited to see. That's the type of momentum I like to see in crypto. Obviously, we broke into all-time new high territory. And it's a really nice technical setup that I've been anticipating for weeks now. Just as long as we had broken past that 69,000 point, which we did. This is a nice high volume, momentous breakout, which is what I've been looking for some time now. I'm expecting one bit of a pullback to sort of test support, and then we'll go on from there. But yeah, Bitcoin and crypto in general has been of huge interest to me, particularly since we have such a pro crypto administration now.
Yeah, I'm calling it the Trump trade. And there's all kinds of different components to it, which I guess I should have really prepared for it before. But frankly, I didn't expect him really to be president. So I wasn't really prepared for this sort of thing happening. It feels like 2016 all over again. But here we go.
Yeah,
So look, let's
your point there is exactly why I'm a big believer in if-then trading or if-then investing. If this happens, then here's my plan. If this happens, then here's my plan, right? So as long as you all had a plan prepared for either outcome, then you were good to go. So anticipating a Trump win was a big one for all kinds of different sectors and industries, but crypto is one of the ones that I was most interested in.
But to me, it's sort of like if aliens landed on the White House lawn, I would have been as surprised as Donald Trump winning the election, but with a landslide. To me, it was like, with the whole UAP stuff floating around, it's not out of the realm of possibility that maybe aliens might come. And I felt just as so I was like, I'm not planning for the alien trade, so I'm not planning for the Trump trade either.
Fair enough.
The Bitcoin trade. All right, we talked about Bitcoin every show. We're always asset. It's high performing, very liquid, very fascinating. Now, there's probably like you. I have a bunch of friends who contact me all the time, always asking me, "Is this a good time to buy? Is this a good time to sell?" They'll send me tickets and what do I think about this? What do I think about that? And always, it's never like some professional money manager with some very reasoned thoughts thinking behind the asset. It's usually these crazy things that very colorful, very green, very blinking lights try to attract attention. Now I try to be a little bit fair. Like, I don't know if they're doing those thumbnails and doing that sort of flamboyancy in order to get traffic, and so I always watch these videos and I see what they have to say. And there's one of these there's these two competing ideas over the last year for Bitcoin. One, there was this big expectation that even I had as well, that that Bitcoin would be making new all-time highs this spring, like last spring and last summer. But that didn't happen. And so this theory that was posited by Steve from Crypto Crew University started making the rounds, called the 5.3 theory. I'm not going to play his whole video thing because it's a little bit, I find it a little bit cringe. 1 second.
Maybe just the good part.
Well, I'll just talk over it.
Sure.
The idea here is that he was measuring the lows and the highs of Bitcoin and the relationship between them for each bull market, and he saw that there was this diminishing return that was happening at an interval of 5.3. So the next high was always in some relationship 5.3. 5.3 the distance from the previous low, giving. Yeah. So the idea here was that there was panic amongst I have some millionaire friends with tons of Bitcoin, and they want to make sure that, hey, should I be holding on to this? Should I be selling now? Because I don't know what's going to go on with the price. And the idea here is that there would be a cap on Bitcoin at, like, let's say around 80,000. That 80,000 would be essentially the high, and that we should have a pullback from there. Now, it looks to be like that's invalidated. We're not saying it's been invalidated, and so the idea here is that, hey, maybe we do have a lot more upside to go. And if we do have a lot of upside to go, what do we want to go on? Now, this is other theory. Have you heard of the banana zone theory from
No, but I'm
Raoul
already a
Pal
fan
from
of the name. The banana. Say it again.
the
The banana
Banana
zone.
Zone.
Okay,
Yeah.
I know. I know. Like one thing that tends to be true is anytime there's a new naming convention for old ideas, I'm always fascinated with how creative people get with the names. So I think we could probably take the name, set it aside, and go, oh, do you mean this? So what is the banana zone? Is this another? Is there a well known concept underneath that?
Well, so the it's a fun name that Raoul Pal, who's the CEO of Real Vision, a sort of a financial education platform, um, coined, which is the period of time where essentially Bitcoin rips to the upside.
Hmm.
That like if there are periods of time that you want to be holding these crypto assets, it's before this banana zone or at the beginning of this banana zone, and
Okay.
that's where Bitcoin makes its run. Makes total sense. We have that these sorts of zones exist not just for crypto. We have that for equities too. These are usually a function of growth and inflation expectations. But I thought it might be fun just to just as a quick introduction to what Raoul Pal says about the banana zone, and then we'll come back to it on the other side.
This, my friends, is the banana zone. This is when we've had 8 months of consolidation.
That's
You've all
what I
lost
thought.
your fucking minds.
From
and then
March
this
of
simple
24.
God candle arrives, and
Right.
suddenly we feel good. Lord Vishnu blesses us with a God candle, and we can all go about our business thinking we're the smartest people in the world. But we're not really. It's actually driven by global liquidity. You've all seen this chart before. Every time global liquidity breaks out, it goes through this consolidation pattern. As liquidity tightens, it breaks out. Crypto breaks out with it. Now, global liquidity is contracting right now, but it did break out to a new high. It's expected to break out going forwards, and I'll show you that in a second. So we're at the point where crypto does really well, which is the banana zone. Crypto follows global liquidity. Does it really well? It's got an 87.5% correlation. Global liquidity is forecast by our models at Global Macro Investor. Global liquidity comes in these seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter. Again, I've covered these a lot. We are in summer. If you look at the summer periods of that weird mustard orange, we always have a strong market in liquidity. So that's debasement of currency that makes our number go up. Our number go up is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the benchmark asset. And again, we go further out the risk curve. Late summer and fall is all about the risk curve. We'll come on to that. But if you look at the mustard periods, it's always gone up in summer. In fact, so is the NASDAQ. All risk assets always go up. Election years, same thing. Presidential election cycle, all the same thing. And then in fall, we tend to have a good rally, and then we top out eventually twice. Global M2, another indicator of private sector liquidity. Bitcoin and that, very good. We're having a little correction now. I don't think it comes back to 80,000, but who knows? But either way, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. Even better, the GMI total global liquidity, 10-week lead. It's been spot on, kids.
So that's the idea of global liquidity, like we've been talking about for weeks now, and the idea that these high beta assets to liquidity, such as tech stocks, crypto, and some of the indexes, they're going to follow this sort of thing.
Mhm.
And so the Fed cutting interest rates and the central banks all around the world actually cutting interest rates and easing up on quantitative tightening. This is adding liquidities to the markets, and we're going to get a rise in these assets. Not to mention China just put in, what was it, $1.2 trillion of liquidity within their system in order to try to save their real estate market. And countries all around the world are doing variations of this sorts of thing. And so until this liquidity gets pulled back out, there's no real reason not to think that these risk assets are just going to continue to rep to the upside. And if that's the case, well, it's very hard to peg a top on assets that are moving both on narrative and on liquidity, right? As long as the liquidity is there, the price that you're going to be getting for the asset is just a marginal price, right? It doesn't say that there's enough volume to absorb everybody who wants to sell at that price, but it means that the price will go up higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. So do you see anything that you were saying at the beginning that you're actually pretty bullish right now? Are you seeing anything that's giving you pause as to how high Bitcoin could go over the next 6 months?
I'm long-term bullish, but short-term bearish. I actually think we still have some work to do to retest some of these lows or some of these new support levels that have been created. So the $74,000 mark would be an interesting area to keep an eye on. I think that there's a lot of potential that we're now going to test this new range of prices between 74,000 and the peak of 93,000. So I don't expect that we just keep going up and up and up forever. Obviously, most markets tend to breathe in between these ranges of price. That zone that Raoul Pal was talking about there, the banana zone in particular, was a fairly long consolidation period that went on for 239 days, most of the year, and now we've broken out, and it's a very strong breakout. It's coupled with volume. It's also coupled with a pullback in global liquidity. I think that now we have to retest this zone, retest the market's strength into the asset, and see where we go from here. But I do expect a short-term pullback before I'm ready to add to positions. That said, it definitely looks very promising. I think the long-term question is where do we stop from here? I've done a few measurements from a few different perspectives, looking at like a really kind of a Fibonacci extension. I think that there's some potential that maybe we get into the 130, 140 zone. From there, it's a kind of a question of how much strength is left from the market. But it's tough to say where the top is for sure.
So the question I have here is because when I see altcoins starting to rip as well, so not just the meme coins, but Cardano I think just went up. What was it, 100% in like a week?
Mm-hmm.
Solana is up pretty significantly off the lows. You have Algo ripping. You have XRP ripping. Now these things are moving, and they seem to like. I'm not seeing the move across all assets, like all crypto assets. I'm seeing it in very specific ones, and the ones that I'm seeing are the ones that have some sort of relationship to the new presidential administration, to the Trump administration. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like.
What is that
XRP,
connection?
like the Gary Gensler looks like he's stepping down as SEC chairman, and so to be
So
replaced
everything
with someone
previously identified as a security is no longer.
Yes, but it was the assets that were affected by that, the crypto assets that were affected by that, were the ones that seemed to be particularly targeted by the SEC, as used as examples. So XRP, Cardano, and then some of the coins who are connected to the network. And then there's been, I mean, I'm a big Cardano fan, and there's been this series of tweets from Charles Hoskinson, who's the creator of the Cardano network, and he's talking to Elon Musk. He's talking to RFK. He's sort of like,
I see.
he's under NDA. He can't say anything. So it's like, okay, what's going on? Is the Trump administration not only going to be friendly to crypto, but also use the blockchain as a way of having identification for voting or transparency for government spending? Like, did that actually happen where the Doge Department of Government Efficiency uses crypto in order to and merge that within the government? I mean, that would be unbelievable. I
Mind
mean,
blowing.
what happened? Yeah. What would
And
happen to the crypto coins
I think
if
it
that
would be
happened?
impressive from the perspective that it would be fairly sophisticated of the government to actually implement such a technology. It's kind of unusual. You know, our governmental systems tend to be pretty far behind the times. You know, rarely use modern technologies, so that would be pretty interesting.
What's cool about Cardano and why I like it so much is it's considered a nerd coin. They've been actually developing these types of technologies for years now. So there are other countries that are using it for identification systems, for tracking of items, wholesale items that are being distributed, for logs, for education systems. Like, they are actually built to do that, and the idea that so I'm long Doge because it has some sort of connection to Elon Musk. And then that coin went up 300%. And then I'm also connected to ADA because I think that could have a connection to Elon Musk. And then that went up 100%, and then Tesla skyrocketed off the lows. I'm just like, okay, whatever's tied to Elon. First of all, never short Elon, always long Elon, and then now he could be tied to the U.S. government. I'm just like, this is crazy. Like to me, the upside that then can happen just based on hype and narrative alone could be incredible. Like the upside potential for crypto could be insane. RFK during his run before he endorsed Trump, wasn't he saying something like he wants the U.S. Treasury to start buying a certain amount of Bitcoin as a reserve asset?
So that is
That
in
was
line
crazy.
with where I've been most interested in government activity around cryptocurrencies, is basically holding as a reserve currency. That subject is really interesting to me because at the moment, world governments around the world hold about 2.2% of Bitcoin. It's a fairly large amount. I know in the United States, we hold about 213,000 Bitcoin that all came from seizures. And interestingly, like most of the acquisition of Bitcoin around the world came from seizures of Bitcoin from fraudulent activity, right? Like China owns 190,000 crypto that was taken from Plus Token, the Plus Token Ponzi scheme. The UK owns about 61,000 Bitcoin that was seized from a money laundering crackdown, and so on and so forth. What they're not doing, though, is engaging in the procurement of Bitcoin as an asset that can be used as a reserve currency on some regular basis. What would be interesting to me is to see the government change its posture to use Bitcoin as a reserve currency or a reserve asset of some kind, but they were buying it on some regular basis. And that seems possible if the administration starts looking at crypto in that way.
So if that happens, then I think the theory I've had is that the reason we've had diminished returns for Bitcoin in that 5.3 theory is that Bitcoin has been in a giant bull flag since its inception. And so what that would mean is that could then have an explosion upward where the entire history or nearly the entire history of Bitcoin actually has been in a consolidation zone. And if that happens, well, then Michael Saylor's $13 million per Bitcoin or Kathy Wood's crazy numbers, well, it becomes possible. And if indeed it almost allows cryptocurrency or Bitcoin specifically to be an off ramp for the debt issue. It's like a type of weird debt jubilee that can happen for governments if you have this offloading of debt and converting it into an asset where that collateral ends up being worth like unbelievable amounts. Sure, you're not selling all the assets in order to cover the debt, but it becomes a new base to the house of cards of the debt structure that we have for our economy. Does that make sense? Like it becomes a new asset that's now valued at some insane amount that can now reset our financial system accordingly and make the debts that we've had so far, you can just wipe them out. The whole thing to me is like reeks of a sort of like too good to be true, but you can almost see that actually happen where the governments are like, okay, well, this could be our exit from this debt spiral that we've been in. And then now let's reset the system for the next 100 years. I could totally see that happening.
Well, it definitely gets me trying to think more about my long-term position on Bitcoin. I have never really been a long-term Bitcoin holder. The more we talk about the idea of Bitcoin being a reserve currency, though, it makes me wonder, why the heck am I trading Bitcoin back into US dollars then? I should be holding as much. I should go the Saylor route here, right? Maybe Saylor's got it right.
Exactly. Well, that's why I find it so interesting when my friends ask me, why are you holding Cardano versus even Bitcoin and these other assets? It's because I think, let's say Bitcoin does become the reserve asset. To me, what's exciting is not holding this new asset any more than I'm excited by holding US Treasuries. What makes me excited is the adoption of this technology and the use of it now in the way that that we've all been promised that it could be used.
Sure.
What's the Amazon.com version of crypto? What are the new applications? Then it makes looking at what's going on within the crypto space really interesting. I think we were talking about on one of our meetings recently. What was the Wi-Fi network that John was talking? I know there's
API
one
3.
called API 3. There you go. Or Helium, which is another one that's like that, or the ASI tokens that are being used right now to power AI development within the space. There's all kinds of interesting things that are happening that, because there's not the financial rails, there's no it's not being sanctioned by the governments around the world, or the biggest, most influential government, the United States, sort of been on the sidelines. If crypto ends up being integrated into the US government, oh my God, talk about an explosion of possibilities and funding that's going to be happening with the crypto space. It's just so exciting. And who knows the multiples you can get on those coins. It'd be crazy.
I'm still of the opinion, though, that if I have to hold anything, I would feel more confident holding Bitcoin than any other cryptocurrency. And I think my thought process behind that is it is the one that is truly peer-to-peer. There's no central. I mean, there's of course the Bitcoin Association and responsible for maintaining it, but there's no Amazon servers behind this, right? Like it's truly peer-to-peer. And I think it has the longest lasting brand impact as well from the world's perspective. As long as there's no change made to its scarcity and being pegged at 21 million, there will always there will never be more than 21 million. I think it stands a much bigger chance of being the most used current cryptocurrency in the very long run, right? If we're talking 50 years from now, which one really survives would be my question. As I've been around crypto long enough, I can tell you I've been watching this industry since 2012 when I first read about Bitcoin. The industry has been filled with all kinds of winners and losers. I could show you the 2014 coin market cap list of the top market cap coins at that time, and about 80% of them aren't even around anymore. But the one that has survived is Bitcoin. So that my question always remains, like, which one would you hold for the very, very long run? Do you think Cardano's around in 25 years from now?
I do think it is, but to your point, it's already a volatile asset. There's no real benefit to being, overly sized on the Cardano. It makes more sense to have heavily weighted on Bitcoin if you could go that route and have these things as a 10%, 20% on the side. But given the fact that I'm crazy risky, I'm going to go 80% Cardano, 20% Bitcoin.
But I still think you're thinking in US denominated terms, though. You're getting back into US dollars in this trade, right? You're not holding Cardano forever.
Well, no, it depends. I don't think you can really separate the two. The crypto system is not trying to, I know that's the promise of it, but it's not really trying to replace the existing financial system, right? We just need a way of being able to tie productive activity to a coin. Like, that's what I think the coin is for. You tie productive activity that the regular US dollar can't tie to, but then you want to convert into that to the US dollar. The reason why I want to keep the financial system that we have throughout the world, the Eurodollar system, it's not something that was like fly by the seat of the pants. They just decided one day and they snapped their fingers and it's there. It's a very complicated web of technology that's set up all around the world that allows me to deposit money in my account here and then go to Japan and withdraw money from an ATM over there. It's not some straight pipeline. There's all kinds of things that's happening, and the idea that will get dismantled in any in any significant amount of time, I don't think it's feasible. And so I think we still need the US dollar as that measuring stick to how we can actually compare the crypto tokens. Because if I were to think of Cardano in and of itself, it's hard for me to generate any value for it because I'm not specifically engaged in any productive act that I can tie a certain number of ADA to, or even Bitcoin to. But I can go, okay, Bitcoin is at 91,000. I have an idea of what that means.
Sure. Yeah, I think early on when I was considering the altcoins versus Bitcoin, I was actually, this is actually a function of just the exchanges themselves. In the early days, there was no Tether there was no USDC, there was no USD denominated pairs. You were actually trading everything against BTC. So you were comparing the relative performance of the altcoins to Bitcoin and ultimately deciding, when do I want to trade this altcoin to sell back into Bitcoin, or so that I could actually increase my Bitcoin holding. Those days are long gone. Like I know the market still exists, the BTC market still exists, but they're thinly traded relative to the USDT and USD markets, right? Or even other foreign currencies. I guess my question has sort of come full circle to this idea of, if governments start looking at crypto, or excuse me, specifically Bitcoin as a reserve currency, is it appropriate for we as retail investors to start thinking of Bitcoin as a reserve asset ourselves, in the same way that we do gold? Should we start denominating our trades against Bitcoin rather than against the US dollar? Does that change your thinking at all?
Well, it's just like how the central banks, their gold is still the reserve asset for the central banks, and
Kind of.
but yeah, well, they accumulate it in times of financial stress, and I could totally understand why. But they still measure it in terms of what's the value of ounces of gold in at least their own currency, if not the US dollar. So
That's
like
true.
I like that as a way of uh, diving into crypto, because it's sort of like how with the rise of social media, views, likes, any type of engagement online, we know there's some sort of value to it. Like we all intuitively understand that somehow the number of views or watchers or something, this metric, somehow is convertible into something that's valuable to me, where I can actually spend it. But we don't know how. You know, if you were to ask me what does one view on Facebook worth versus one view on YouTube, I can't really tell you, but I know they're worth something.
Hmm.
And to be able to convert that into an actual dollar amount, like this is the number of subscribers for my Patreon, this is the amount I'm receiving per month from ad revenue on, okay, now I have a number that I can convert every unit of visibility, every unit of attention into something that's actually useful.
Right.
And so the US dollar is so useful as that. I don't really see any crypto, superseding that in the next 50 years.
Okay.